do you do when you're voting for your soulmate and your soulmate is not voting for the party that you are voting for? Can you marry them? And the answer is maybe. It's so interesting. If you would have asked me this question 50 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, it's like, what's the big deal? It's no big deal. Like, you go to the right and I go to the left. And so, in life we meet in the middle, but in the polls, we just do something different, close the curtain and nobody needs to talk about it. But what has happened in modern day is that politics isn't politics. Politics is now interwoven into religion, my belief system, my passions, my priorities in life, my values. It is enmeshed into who we are. And our political party is a result of almost of the essence of who we are. Like, we vote based on that. Not everybody, but a lot of people modern day are voting based on who they are. They're not voting based on a party or a specific candidate, but it's, this is me. These are my beliefs. I'm in line with this. And because I'm in line with this, I vote for this. And it's very hard for me to see why anybody else would consider another side, another opinion. And if you don't know why you should consider another side or another opinion, it's very difficult to say, well, oh, we could get along and have a relationship and romance and everybody, it'll be fine. We'll raise kids and we'll have family holiday parties and we'll do Thanksgiving and we'll do all of these things together. And we'll just deal with this on election day and like we won't talk for the month before. But if you see, politics has started to be interwoven into the very fabric of our lives on a daily basis, and therefore it makes it very difficult. So I'm going to break this down into a couple different categories, and depending on where you fall will depend on who you should date. Okay. This is the middle here. The middle here is like, I vote for who I vote for. Some years it's like this and some years it's like that. And it depends on what I'm thinking or feeling. I'm not really strongly attached to either party. I don't really follow politics. Like, like whatever, it's a part of life, but it's not really a part of my life. I don't really make this my thing. That type of person can marry somebody on either side because they're super flexible. As long as you don't make them talk every day about politics, because they're not interested. They really don't care. But they also don't care that you care so much. It doesn't bother them. It doesn't irritate them. It's no friction in the relationship as long as you don't bring it into their lives. So if you sit at the breakfast table every morning and you open the paper and you're looking through the paper and you want to talk politics and you want to do that with your partner, you can't choose a partner who's in the middle of the road. You also can't choose a partner who's on the opposite side. You're going to need somebody who is interested and also on your side. If you're in the middle and the other person is somewhere flexible, like if there's here, which is the middle, there's here, which is like, yeah. And then there's like, really, I've got an opinion, maybe I'm the kind of person who stands out there with the signs or with, vote or giving out the stickers or like, I'm really, really involved. This is important to me. And not only is it important to me, but I want to be a part of the change. I want to make a difference and I want to see my party win because that's something to me that really means something. If that's how you feel, you need to marry somebody who's not on the other side, who's not in the middle, and who's not even neutral about it. They have to be able and willing to engage with you. They have to be willing to talk about it with you. Because if they're not willing to talk about it with you, you're going to go stir crazy. You're not going to be able to handle it because you need this. This drives you. You're passionate about it. And you need to share it with your partner because again, it's interwoven into your life. So it's about a lot of different decisions in your life. It always leads back to politics. And let me explain this and why my party is like that. And those things are things that drive people apart. It creates a lot of friction. Hear that? Right? And if you do that, your hands start to get hot. It creates heat in a relationship. And when there's heat in a relationship, it causes fire. And when there's fire in a relationship, when there is a fire, there could be a healthy fire, a contained fire. It could be, in a fireplace, or there can be wildfires. And a wildfire in a relationship are the things that lead to the downfall and the divorce of relationships. So we need to be very careful about who we are engaging with to know what is going to work for us. Okay. If you are a person that would be likely, even if you don't have it now, but you would be the kind of person to have a lawn sign in the front of your house for your party, you got to get somebody that really has some affection towards that party. We need to have somebody that's okay with things like that. So this is the basis. Now, hang on 1 minute because I want to lean over here and grab a book. Yesterday I was learning, and I was learning the 48 Ways to Wisdom with Rav Noach Weinberg. Sorry, you could see my ring light there. And in this book, we were up to chapter 11, which talked about Dikduk Chaverim, which is examining ideas with your friends. Okay. Now, I want to read this special part right here. Dikduk Chaverim. Thoughtfully examining ideas with friends is essential for attaining wisdom and living effectively. It means putting your ideas on the marketplace and discussing them with friends and other people you respect and trust. Okay. Now, it doesn't just mean putting your ideas out there. It also means that you have the ability to perk up your ears and to listen to what other people have to say. And when we're talking about examining ideas, it literally means examining the idea. It doesn't mean you have to agree. It doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you're going to be convinced of anything. It just means somebody else is going to speak on a topic that is going to probably be very different and opposite to yours. And you're going to think everything they're saying is maybe crazy. How could they think that? Because your beliefs are so over here and their beliefs are so much on this side. And then you're going to have to just have a conversation. You're not trying to convince them of anything. You're just trying to examine ideas. Maybe you even want to see if you could see something from their point of view. If you're so entrenched in your own ideas and in your own viewpoints, and you could never even see anybody else's point of view, then you can't be with a partner who has different views than you. You'll never be able to have a successful relationship if somebody's not on the same page with you. And this will cause a tremendous amount of friction in a relationship long term. And that's going to be a really big problem. So my long and short answer is, I don't care which side you're on. I don't care if you're to the left. I don't care if you're to the right. I don't care if you are neutral middle of the road. What I care about is if you know how to communicate, if you know how to have a conversation, if you know how to have an interaction. And I want to know how high is your tolerance for having this type of conversation, because if your tolerance is very, very low, then you need a partner that's more similar to you politically. If you have a higher tolerance for having a conversation, then you have a higher tolerance for having a partner that might be on a different end of the political spectrum than you are. With that, I am going to open this up. Sarah's giving me a lot of good, I like the nods and the feedback since we don't have the whole real audience here. We have you virtually with us. Sarah's been checking out all the comments and pulling up all the questions. So let's bring it on.
Yeah, it's so this whole thing is just so fascinating, I think, because I feel like you see people's feelings about all this most accurately on Facebook, where everyone's just sharing their opinions, which is fine, sharing their opinions, sharing their thoughts, sharing their feelings, instigating conversations that are 98.5% of the time totally not productive. And it's interesting. We've gotten to a point where the sides are so polarized that for a lot of people, there's just no talking to the other side. And I think that, anyway, okay, let's get to questions.
Sarah's getting all deep and philosophical with us. I love it.
All right, first question.
Yeah.
Why should we want to date a person who supports Biden-Harris? Isn't that a major, major red flag?
Right. So we're not talking about specific candidates. For you, that is a major red flag. For other people in the world, that is a major red flag. For other people in the world, they're they're all excited about it. Right? So why would you want to date it? You personally who's asking this question.
You think it's a red flag is a red flag.
Right. So you wouldn't want to date somebody like that because clearly you are in another party and that party is for you and you have very strong beliefs and you're really attached to that. And anybody who has a different belief than you, you're not able to see that. So if you can't see that, then you can't date somebody who has different political beliefs than you in this climate today. So you wouldn't want to, but there are a lot of people who would.
All right. So I feel like a lot of the questions that came up you've answered, but because it's such a sensitive and nuanced conversation, I'm going to ask them anyway, even if it just means that you're repeating yourself in different words. I feel like it's worth hearing because so rarely spoken about. So the discourse has become so polarized that you can't really hold a conversation with some people on the other side. It feels like they live in their own world, even cult. Is there hope, or should I move on to the next person?
Move on. If they are really in their box and in their world, you can't, because again, if it was just about politics 50 years ago, it was just about politics. It was, not that it was just about politics. Of course, there were values and beliefs and other things that were ingrained and incorporated into that, but not like today. Today, it is very different. It's almost like it's a part of somebody's identity, and they take it on very seriously. So we ask the last part of the question. What's the
is there hope, or should I move on to the next
is there
person?
hope? I would move on to the next person. I don't think somebody that is so into their side, like it sounds like you might be open to having a conversation, digging into the topic, talking about it, agreeing to disagree, which is a great thing to do, but it doesn't sound like the other side is. And if they're not, I would just say it straight. Since you're going to give up this match anyway, you're just like, forget it. It's not going to be anything. If you're willing to give it up, then you should be willing to say, can we agree to disagree? Is it possible to have a relationship without this being, without us being unified or on the same page about that? Are you okay with that? I am. Here's why I am. Here's how I think it could work. Are you on the same page with me? If they say no, then it's a no. If they say yes, then there's a place to have a conversation. And if they're like, what? Never. And you're like, okay, good. Clarity, next, and move on.
Thank you. So I guess you just answered the question, what if you have a high tolerance, but the other person doesn't?
Yeah. You could, again, I would really discuss it. If you have a high tolerance, I would say, I have a high tolerance, but here's my ground rules. You enjoy your party and your side. Talk about it with your buddies and your friends, but don't talk about it with me, because I don't want to. I have a tolerance to deal with that in a relationship, but it's not what I want to focus on in a relationship.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So I just want to make one comment, just throw out a reminder for all of you in the chat box. I love that you're all talking, and that's awesome. And you can totally keep it going, but please keep in mind, we're not here to bash any party. So if you feel really strongly about it and you can't chat without making negative comments, then just don't. All right.
The whole purpose is about relationships, that you are able to talk about this topic. And if you're not able to talk about this topic, only talk about it with people that are in your camp, in your party, and not in my chat line.
All right. Next up, if I'm an avid Republican, does it even make sense to date a Democrat?
Okay, right. So maybe, right? If they vote, let's ask a few questions, right? If they vote Democrat, are you okay with it? If they talk about they want to vote Democrat, are you okay with it? If you sit at a table together and you talk about pro-Republican and they're talking about pro-Democrat, and you have like a little bit of a banter back and forth, and you agree to disagree, are you okay with that? Or is that going to constantly be a rub and an irritation and a friction? Is it possible to vote however you vote and never talk about politics together? Is that a possibility? Are you one of those people, again, that just thrives and feeds on politics? Like, I know these couples, and one side is totally into politics. The other side, maybe they're like in the neutral or a little checked out and just not interested. And they'll engage around the table. They'll talk about it. And the other person just never opens their mouth when that topic comes up. They're like, I'm just not interested. It's not my thing. And we don't focus on that in our relationship. But I know that that's his thing, or I know that that's her thing. And whatever, it makes my partner happy, it doesn't make me happy, so we don't talk about it, but I still have a tolerance to let them talk about it.
All right. Why is having different political views, why is that an issue, in the same way like we have different tastes in food? why is this such a big difference? Is it the particular view, or is it how flexible they are? That's really the issue.
It's not like food, because food, if it's not your preference, you don't eat it. And how often does it come? I mean, you do eat often. We eat several times a day and every day. But look, food can be an issue also, right? So let's dig into food for a minute and we'll compare it to politics. My husband and I have very, very different food preferences, like night and day, like black and
Like,
white.
you should go check out the YouTube video. What did we call it? Romance and recipes.
Recipes and romance.
Recipes and romance.
Recipes
Sorry.
and romance. Maybe you'll look it up and put it on the chat. Recipes and romance. So you'll see. My husband, let me just tell you, he's a total foodie, loves food. He's into it. Barbecues, grills, he does meat, he does veggies, he does dips. He makes everything look gorgeous and yummy, and homemade hummus, and like, you name it, he does it. That is really, really his thing. I'm more of the baker. I do the challah, I do the desserts. I can cook also, but like, he is a foodie. He's a foodie. And I'm a former vegetarian, like for 13 years. And now I'm, pescatarian. Like, I like food. I enjoy healthy food. I enjoy lightly seasoned, lightly spiced, nothing crazy. I mean, I don't mind spices here and there, but like, he's like a foodie. He gets excited. You should see his face. He come over for a barbecue. He gets really excited about our. Sarah,
oh my
did we
god!
ever make
Oh
this
my
barbecue?
god! How have we never discussed our husbands like doing something together? Or
We
us
should.
doing something? We should have a barbecue together. How have we never? Okay.
Have your people call my people.
I'll have my people call your people. Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you, food, it's a real issue, because when I make dinner, it's healthy. There's lots of green vegetables. It's not over seasoned or crazy. It's, like my kind of food, right? And when he makes dinner, it's meaty and it's delicious and it's schmaltzy. It's dripping with schmaltz on top of schmaltz with a side of schmaltz, and it looks good and it tastes good, and like, he's in the presentation. I mean, forget about it. It's out of this world, right? But I don't really like eating his food, and he doesn't like eating my food. And it is a little bit of an issue on a daily basis, right? We laugh about it. That's one of our bigger issues. And yeah, it is a thing. But he does his thing, I do my thing. He now cooks the way that I like. Like, he'll make me my fish with my lemon and my veggies that aren't over oiled or seasoned, right? Like, we have things going on. So it is an issue. Politics, though, again, it comes down to it's a part of our religious beliefs. It's a part of our daily living. It's a part of what happens in our communities. Like, do you vote to the right or move to the left? Or, there's movements within communities. You see things happening in different parties, and people are on different sides, and it's very divided. Modern day, politics was always divided, but even more so today, it seems to be much more polarized. And it's very difficult to, like, think about it. How attached are you to your politics? Some people are so attached, they can't see the other side as being like that it makes any sense whatsoever. They just look at the other side and like, you're ridiculous and you're stupid, and how could you even think that? Or like, what's wrong with you? And both sides think that about each other. So we don't have this ability to examine ideas from somebody else's point of view anymore. And when we lose that ability, then you lose the ability to marry somebody who might have different beliefs than you. So unless you want to shift who you are and what you think and how you look at things, which I don't know that we're all motivated to do that, but if we were, it would be amazing. And then, yes, we could open up who we would marry. But right now, we're not really able to do that unless we first open our minds and our hearts.
All right. And I think you touched on this. I don't know if you totally answered it, so I'm going to ask again, because I have this question in like four different questions, all phrased differently. But I consider certain social issues to be basic morals, and I grapple with dating someone who doesn't prioritize these values. Would you agree that at this point in time, someone's political affiliation is indicative of their moral values? And would that be a reason why this is more important to consider today than it did 50
Yes.
years ago, let's say.
Yes. Yes, and I agree with the way that you worded that and how you explain that. Yes, that's the case. And that's why, because it is interwoven with our values. It's not about a vote anymore, right? Like, oh yeah, we're all going to go out and vote. Yes, we're all going to go out and vote, but that's not what I'm attached to. I'm attached to the belief that I live with on a daily basis and my value on a daily basis that's a part of my life.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask this one more time. I get really annoyed really fast when it comes to screen. Please keep the chat respectful. Like, just come on. We're all adults here. This conversation is not about your political perspective. It's
We're
about
not,
politics
by the way,
and
there's
dating.
zero agenda. We have, if you're on this and you have an agenda to convince somebody of something on one side or the other, pop off, because this is not the place for you.
I don't even know. I don't know Aleeza's perspective. Aleeza, we've been working together for a year and a half and we've never discussed
I'm not
politics.
gonna tell you on this
Keep it
webinar.
that way. But like, come on, people, this is not the place to get all of your like atzabim. How do you say atzabim in English? Okay, I don't know. What's happening to me?
To like
nerves, but it's not nerves. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah,
I can't believe that's the first time that happened. Okay. Next up, practically speaking, I'm a frum woman, but politically liberal, and I find this is hard in dating. How do I share my views on a date, especially now?
Good question. So there's the Aleeza approach and then there's the Sarah approach. So Sarah, think about your answer to this because I'm calling on you next. But the Aleeza approach is to like dance around the topic and talk about things a little bit lightly and like, oh, what do you think about this? And bring up an issue that's like a little mini issue. And then like, oh, what do you think about that? And if you see like you can connect the dots, like, oh, all of his things are conservative. He probably leans to the right, or all of his things are, more open-minded and similar to mine. Oh, he probably leans to the left. That would be my way of doing it. I'm going to guess Sarah's way, where Sarah's just like, like, oh, like, I'm not super into politics, but I am more on the liberal side. How about you?
Yeah, I think that would probably be my approach. I think it usually would come up with a particular issue, like probably we'd be talking about something specific and he'd make a point and I'd say, wow, really, I totally disagree. I would love to understand more why you think that. And then I'd like to tell you why I totally disagree.
And I love that because you just said, I want to examine that idea. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. And I will say, because politics is so polarized and for good, not for good reason it's so polarized, but for good reason we feel strongly about whatever perspective we have. It sometimes comes at the expense of really not taking the time to explore why the other side says what they say and does what they do and feels the way they feel. And I think it's so important, especially if you're dating someone, not as a general rule. Like if you want to be like, this is my stance and I don't even care what the other side says, and I don't know, if you want to be that person, fine. But when it comes to dating, I think it's so important to listen, because usually there's a really good answer. You might not agree with it, but there is usually a thought process. Really,
and it's also it's about that person. So if your goal is to learn about them, like you said, it's not about what they're voting for or that. Why is that important to you? Where does that come from? And I think that that's what you're getting at. If you don't care enough to know about the person that's in front of you and what their beliefs are, then you don't want to be in a relationship with them. You care about the outcome. The outcome is who they vote for, right? But why? That's what really matters.
Reminds me of? It reminds me very much of when we spoke about how values take on different meaning for different people. For example, time. Someone who comes from a culture where respect means you show up on time at the called for time, and someone comes from a culture where respect means you show up late because the host knows everyone's going to be late, right? They're both respectful, and each side, seeing the others, thinks like, oh my God, that's so disrespectful. And once you learn and you understand, you're like, oh, respect is a value to them, and they just interpret it a little bit differently based on their culture. And I think this is one of those things. Like, I might very strongly still disagree with what my date says, but I'm going to respect why he chose to believe in that, or I might not, and then it'll probably be over. But taking the time to get to know who, why, where, when, and yeah, usually upfront about it.
Right. Right. So you can
Aleeza,
either take the Aleeza approach or you can take the Sarah approach. You choose.
and
The
you know what?
indirect or
They
the
both
direct.
work. um, any suggestions on how to diffuse an escalating political discussion while on a date or even a phone date?
Yeah, so sometimes we have to like cut it sharply. So here's where I would take the Sarah approach. Like, I'd really love to get to know you. Maybe we'll do politics another time. And then boom, you have to have a new topic that you want to talk about. Like, so I wanted to tell you about this thing. It happened to me the other day. Bring up a story, bring up a topic, anything. Shift, change the subject, move on. The yeah, I don't
I'm
the truth
just
is
laughing because I'm like, on this, I would take the Aleeza approach.
Okay, good, because I actually want to take the Sarah approach. So what's the Aleeza approach? What would you do?
No, I would still be straightforward. And I love what you said about having another topic, because it's not fair to change the topic and then make them like say something else. But I think especially if like they're passionate about politics, it's not seen as like a negative thing. And so just immediately, like, they probably went on a rant about something and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, now's not the time or place, which is totally understandable. And that's fine. But to come at that with like, yeah, let's not talk politics is like, okay, I just like opened up and shared my thoughts and perspectives, and you're totally not like acknowledging that. I would probably say, I would be straightforward, but I would probably say something like, I want to hear more about, your political perspective or whatever, and I would love to share with you my thoughts another time. But for right now, I would love to know more about whatever XYZ, whatever your topic will be, because I want to get to know you first before we jump into an intense political discussion or something like that.
Great. I love it.
All right. Are we ready for the next
Totally,
question?
totally agree.
This
We
is a
are
little
ready.
different. Let's shake things up a little bit. What if the other person is on the same side as you, but is deeply into unbased conspiracy theories?
Yeah, so now they're on the same side, but they're crazy. They're still crazy. And you're like, I don't get it. We're on the same side. How are we still not on the same page? So even if you're on the same side, it's true. You might not still be on the same page. So can you put that aside? Like, really, like, we're to find a human being in this world that you want to love and connect with and live with for the rest of your life is difficult. It's difficult enough with social distance dating. It's difficult enough with virtual dating. It's difficult enough in this type of political climate. Now you finally find somebody on the same page and they're like a conspiracy theorist, and that drives you nuts. But can you just ignore it, or can you agree to disagree, or can you like be like, yeah, but talk to your friends about that, not me, I'm like not into it? Can we make it a non-issue? Is there any way to take that and neutralize it so that we don't lose the potential for this amazing relationship? Because there's so many other things here that might work, but for the fact that they're just crazy in this area, and if I think about that too much, then I think that they're illogical, and then I think that they can't make any rational decisions, and then when we disagree about something, I'm going to think, yeah, but you're crazy about this, so you must also be crazy about that. So if you don't spin out, you hear how fast I got, right? If you don't spin out in your thinking when you're talking about those types of things with people, and if you can keep their crazy just to their conspiracy theories and be like, well, like, who knows? Maybe they could be right. I mean, I don't buy into it, but let it be, right? If you could put that over there on the side, I think you could still have a relationship, and I would want you to give it a try.
Thank you.
But address it. Yeah.
So, someone just brought up in the chat actually that in a previous webinar, Aleeza, you said that it's generally not a good idea to bring up politics on a first date. And
True.
someone else responded with, I think it's a great idea to bring up politics immediately. If the person you're thinking of dating is completely has a different, come on, people, respect. I can't do this. If you're not respectful, I'm just going to call you out on it. Okay, at least I know it's your webinar. But if the person you're thinking of dating has a completely different perspective on politics, why waste time with that person?
Yeah, so I like waver. I could see both. Here's a good point. I can see both points of view. I could see the point of view of like, let's just talk about politics. If we agree on politics, hey, we can continue. If you're going to run it that way, you may as well ask them before you get on the date. Put it in your
Right.
dating profile if it's that important to you. Like, give clues and hints that I lean to the right or I lean to the left. Let somebody know that that's who you are, and that'll just scare the other people away, which is great. If you're already on a date with them, I want to know if you like the human being in front of you. If you do, you
Yeah.
might be a little more flexible with the politics.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, and I'm just going to put this in there, Sarah, for everybody who's on the chat. Whatever's happening, because I'm not watching you, because I'm watching the webinar and making sure this is running, please keep it cool, keep it kosher. And in other webinars, we have had to excuse people from the webinar, which means you go bye-bye and you go to Never Never Land and you never come back. So please, let's not do that. Let's just keep it friendly and open. And this is about having an open mind and having an open discussion. And that is what we are here to do. If you cannot do that in the chat, if you are instigating in the chat, then you're going to be instigating in your relationship a lot and it's going to mess things up. So bite your tongue, zip it, hold it, and okay, keep it kosher.
All right. We've got a question. I sometimes find myself trying to change or stifle my own opinions because I know a fair proportion of the people I may date would disagree, but my opinions are part of me and it's stressful to have to do that. Any suggestions?
Yeah, are you comfortable taking the Aleeza approach and like dancing around the subjects and like leaking out parts of who you are? Or are you comfortable taking the Sarah approach and being like, hey, I've got opinions too, and you've got yours and I've got mine, but let's agree to disagree? Pick an approach. It doesn't have to be, it could be anywhere in between those two things, but pick an approach and don't hide who you are. No, if they're not hiding who they are, why do you need to hide who you are? Because it might ruin the relationship. What are you going to do? Hide and not talk about it for the rest of your life? If you're not going to, okay, but it doesn't sound like it's making you happy. So I would consider not doing that.
I also want to add, for a long time, like for a number of years when I first started dating, I dated with the goal or the understanding that my goal on a date was to make a good impression and to like get another date. And it took me a while to realize the goal of a date is to find out if this person is a good match for me and if this is someone who I could potentially see myself developing a relationship with and, you know, creating a life together. So I definitely took the, like, I shared my opinions because I can't not. I shared my opinions, but also if the guy would say something disagreed, I would be very like, I'd put the disclaimer out, but I'm always open to like hearing other opinions and I can change and like,
Great.
and I would casually kind of like redirect the things I was saying until I realized, no, I'm allowed to have an opinion and he doesn't have to agree with me. And on some things, it's totally fine if we just agree to disagree. And my goal isn't to mold to what he's looking for. My goal is to see, are we a good fit together as we are?
I love that. And I think that that's really what it is. And I like that approach where you can share your opinion and you can also let people know I'm here to hear your opinion also. And I'm open to that. Sarah, check out WhatsApp for other questions and things. And we're going to keep the questions rolling.
Yeah. All right. So we got a few more. All right. This one has a bit of a backstory, but let's share it. I'm not a very political person, but I was recently dating someone who had very strong political beliefs that clashed with mine without realizing how strongly I felt until these conversations started happening. I sort of brushed things aside at the beginning because I was just getting to know him, but these things really bothered me and we argued about them, caused a lot of friction, and was very telling regarding who we are at our core and how much our personalities actually clashed in the end, which is what ended the relationship. We agreed to disagree in the beginning, but I questioned these things from so early on, and yet I let it keep going when I really should have ended it the minute I saw we didn't align in major areas. Are there questions you'd recommend to ask when dating? Oh, I think I asked this in other words. In the early stages to tease out where the partner stands without fully diving into the topic. Some people don't want to bring this up this early in dating to avoid wildfire conflicts. So I guess we touched on a lot of this, but let's hear it again.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is what are the questions that we should be asking? So if we're not going to directly talk about politics or directly dive into this, then the question is indirectly, how are we going to have this conversation, or
Right.
what are the light versions of questions that you could ask somebody, right? So I'm trying to think just like off the cuff. Do you have anything off the cuff, like off the top of your head? I'm thinking about. Really, it's so personal because it's like, well, what about that party is so meaningful to you? Is it how somebody might vote on Israel or human rights, or like what are the areas that you're most interested in, and then have a conversation about. I guess the answer is be more specific. Have a specific conversation about one little nuanced detail that might be a part of your party's beliefs, but that you're very attached to, and dip into a conversation like that. That's not a full on political conversation, but is a piece of a conversation that is related to something that's meaningful to you. And the truth is, I know you kind of like were kicking yourself like, oh, or maybe I should have ended this earlier and whatever. You don't really know where something's going to go, and so you didn't know until you knew that it was too much, and maybe you took, like maybe you let it drag on a little bit longer than you should have let it drag on. But don't beat yourself up about that, because that just means when you walked away you had full clarity, and I am a huge fan of 100% crystal clarity, knowing that this person is not for me. So you're never looking back and saying like, oh, did I miss them? Did I make a mistake? Maybe I passed up somebody who was good, and oh, just because of our political beliefs, was that really a thing? You could answer that. Yeah, that was really a thing. We looked into that, and that totally didn't work. That's what I'd say
Awesome.
on that.
All right. What if my date constantly talks about politics? Is that a red flag?
I mean, do you like to talk about politics? I'm guessing not. It's not inherently a red flag if you like to talk about politics, and they do too. Some people do politics for a living. So I mean, like, is it a red flag that Aleeza always talks about dating and relationships and love, and she never stops talking about that, even at the Shabbos table, and even on a Tuesday at dinner, and even with the waitress when we go out to dinner? Like, I'm always talking about dating and relationships and love. And my husband's like, sweetheart, this isn't work. I'm like, no, this is life. Like, I'm all into it. My work is life. It's other people's lives. And I just, like, I could talk to anybody about dating and relationships and love all the time. And it's very exciting to me. So for some people, they feel that way about politics. Is it inherently a red flag? No, it's not. But if it bothers you, is it a red flag? Yeah, it is.
Awesome. And what if the couple has similar political views, but one person's parents have different political views? How do you make visits with the parents manageable?
Don't go in November.
Don't what?
Don't go in November.
Ha, ha.
Yeah, you have to have a conversation between the two of you. Like, hey, sweetheart, listen, here's the deal. We don't talk about politics with your parents. Like, whatever we have to do, break a glass, drop something, like spill your food and run to the bathroom. Just don't talk about it, and distract and divert the conversation, and keep trying to move it away from that so that we don't have a problem with them. And if you have to take the direct route, then do it Sarah's direct route and don't do the indirect route. Or if you like the direct route better, just say, we love you and we don't want to talk about politics because we want to have a really great relationship with you, and we have different views. But if they don't know you have different views, then just keep changing the subject and always have something new to talk about. And you better have a list of like 15 things, because talking about the weather 29 times is going to get real old real fast. Have stories. You got to have stories, like yap and blabber and take up the conversation space so you don't get routed into a political conversation.
Awesome. If someone is apathetic, how can you gear him or her towards your political view?
Why do we need to?
I was just going to ask that.
Right. Good. We're on the same page. Yeah. Like, why? Air high five, virtual high five. Yeah. So why? I was going to actually bring something up. What happens? Because we're talking about being on opposite sides. But what happens if you have somebody who doesn't vote? Maybe they're not even registered. Oh my gosh, could you imagine in 2020 somebody who doesn't vote and they're not even registered? it's like a shanda. How could it be that they don't vote and they're not registered? There are people that exist like that in the world, by the way. They're probably not on this webinar, but some people just don't want to get into it. It's really not for them. And why are you trying to drag them along? Like, leave them alone, leave politics out of your relationship, go get married, build a family, bahatzlacha, good luck, make it happen, but don't make a problem where there isn't a problem. That's what I think.
Awesome. I like it. So I think we're going to end this a little earlier than usual so that we can let everyone really go deep.
Watch the political
on a
debate
different
that's happening
platform.
tonight. Okay, so let me tell you a few things about us for any of our new friends and any of our old friends. We work as dating and relationship coaches, and we are here to get you over your hurdles and under the chuppah.